mother took my entire paycheck and gave me back barely enough to eat, then blew $1.4 million on vacations and my brother's lifestyle. Now, she has nothing left. My mother, Coraline, sat me down the week before I started my first real job after college and told me how things were going to work in her house. She said since I was living under her roof and eating her food and using her electricity, my entire paycheck would go directly to her. She said she would manage the money responsibly and give me a weekly budget for my personal needs. She said the budget would be 2,000 pesos per week. My salary was 48,000 pesos per month. She was keeping over 40,000 pesos of my money every single month and handing me back barely enough to cover transportation and lunch. She said this was how their family did things back in her generation. She said her own mother collected her salary until she got married. She said it taught discipline and gratitude. She said I would thank her someday when I understood the value of financial responsibility. My brother Dino was 3 years older than me. He also lived at home. He also had a job, working as a sales associate at a furniture store. My mother never asked Dino for a single peso. When I asked why the rules were different for him, she said Dino was saving up for his future and he needed every cent. She said as the daughter it was my duty to contribute to the household. She said Dino would eventually carry the family name forward and he needed to be financially strong. She said I would get married someday and my husband would take care of me, so the money I was earning now was basically extra anyway. For 3 years, I handed over my salary. Every payday I transferred the money to my mother's account and she gave me my 2,000 pesos in cash. She counted it out slowly every time like she was being generous. Some weeks she would reduce it to 1,500 if she said the electricity bill was higher than expected. She never showed me any bills. She never showed me where the money went. What I did see was where the money went. Coraline got her hair done every 2 weeks at an expensive salon. She bought new clothes almost every weekend. She replaced the living room furniture twice in 3 years, even though nothing was wrong with the old furniture. She bought a new refrigerator because she didn't like the color of the one we had. She went on 2 vacations with her church friends and came back with suitcases full of shopping bags from every city she visited. She also gave Dino money regularly. She bought him new shoes when he wanted them. She gave him cash when he went out with friends on weekends. She paid for his gym membership, his phone plan, and his car insurance, all with my salary. Dino never questioned where the money came from. He just took what she offered and went about his life, while I ate the same packed lunch every day and wore the same 3 work outfits on rotation, because 2,000 pesos a week barely covered breathing. Last year, I got a job offer from a different company. The salary was almost double what I was making. I accepted the offer without telling Coraline about the raise. I set up a new bank account at a different bank that she didn't know about. For 8 months, I saved quietly. Every month, I transferred the exact same amount I used to give her into her account, so she wouldn't notice anything had changed. The rest went into my savings. I put together enough to rent my own apartment and furnish it simply, and still have a cushion for emergencies. Then Dino's situation changed everything. Dino got engaged to a woman named Felicity, whose family expected a proper wedding. Not a small ceremony at City Hall. A full reception with 100 guests and catering and a venue and a photographer. Felicity's parents offered to pay for half. The estimated cost for Dino's share was around 300,000 pesos. Dino went to Coraline and told her he needed help. He said he had been counting on her support because she always told him she was saving for his future. He said he had almost nothing in his own account because he spent most of his income on lifestyle expenses. He said he assumed she had been setting aside money for him this whole time. Coraline's face went pale. She said she needed time to look at her accounts. 2 weeks later, Dino asked again. Coraline told him she had about 20,000 pesos available. Dino stared at her. He asked where all the money went. He said he did the math. He said in 3 years alone I had given her over 1.4 million pesos. He asked where 1.4 million pesos went. Coraline started making excuses. The next morning, Coraline pulled me into the kitchen before Dino was even awake. She put her hand on my shoulder like we were having a warm mother-daughter moment and said I needed to give her extra this month. She said Felicity's family was watching, and if we couldn't pay our half, they'd call off the engagement. I told her I couldn't afford extra. Her face changed so fast. The soft mom act disappeared, and she snapped that I lived there for free, ate there for free, and the least I could do was help my brother have the life he deserved. I told her I would see what I could do, which was what I always said when I needed her to stop talking. That evening, Dino came into my room and closed the door behind him, which he almost never did. He asked if I could lend him money. He said even 50,000 would help. I almost laughed. 50,000 pesos was more than I had ever been allowed to hold in my hands at one time in 3 years of working full-time. I told him the version of the truth that matched the life. He thought I was living. I said I barely had anything saved. I said 2,000 pesos a week doesn't leave you with anything at the end of the month. Dino tilted his head. He said, wait, mom only gives you 2,000 a week out of your whole salary? I nodded. I could see him doing the math. 48,000 a month going in, 8,000 a month coming back. He was starting to see what I had been living with for 3 years while he got new shoes and gym memberships and spending money handed to him like it was nothing. At dinner that night, Dino put his fork down and looked right at Coraline and asked why I only got 2,000 when she was collecting my whole paycheck. The table went quiet. Coraline kept chewing and said that was between her and me, that I had agreed to the arrangement and never complained. Like silence was the same thing as agreement. Dino opened his mouth, but Coraline gave him the look that meant the conversation was over, and he pressed his lips together and looked down at his plate. I sat there quiet, eating my food, paying attention to every tiny detail. This was the first time I had ever seen cracks form between them. Later that night, Coraline called me into her room and told me to close the door. She dropped her voice low and told me not to dare turn my brother against her. She said if I started making problems, I would regret it. I asked her calmly where 1.4 million pesos went. She said running a household was expensive. I asked if she could show me any records, receipts, bank statements, anything. She said she didn't need to show me anything. She said she was my mother and that should be enough. I didn't push. I already knew where the money went. I had watched it disappear into salon visits and shopping bags and new furniture for 3 years. I just needed to hear her refuse to answer. I went back to my room and pulled a bag from my closet and started packing. I folded clothes carefully and put them at the bottom. I tucked my important papers into a folder and slid it along the side. I didn't pack everything because I couldn't risk Coraline walking in and seeing half my closet empty. I pushed the bag under my bed where no one would see it. I set my move-out date for the following Saturday. 7 days. I spent that week carrying small boxes to my new apartment after work, a little at a time, so no one at home would notice. I would pack a small bag with books or kitchen things and walk out the door like I was going going to meet a friend. By Thursday, I had most of my important things out. Coraline kept pushing me to hand over more money, hinting that family was supposed to support each other. She had no clue she was squeezing a bank account I had already emptied. On Friday evening, Felicity and her parents came over for dinner. Coraline had set the table with the good plates, the ones she bought with my money last year because the old set wasn't nice enough for guests. She was wearing a new blouse I had never seen before. Felicity's father put his napkin down and asked if she and Dino had sorted out their half of the wedding budget. He said they needed to finalize the venue deposit by next week. Coraline smiled that warm, responsible mother smile and said, of course, they were a family that took care of their obligations. She said it so smooth, like the money was sitting in an account somewhere just waiting to be transferred. I watched her say it, without a single crack in her face. She promised money that did not exist. She looked a man in the eyes and told him her family would cover their share when she had 20,000 pesos to her name and over $1 million of my earnings already gone. I kept eating. After dinner, Felicity followed me into the kitchen carrying glasses. She touched my arm lightly and said she appreciated everything my family was doing. She said Dino told her my mom had been saving for years to help with the wedding. My stomach turned, but I kept my face still. The house got quiet after they left. Then I heard Coraline's voice through the wall. She was on the phone, using that particular mix of sweet and sad she used when she wanted sympathy. I stood near my door, which I had left open a crack. I heard her tell someone, probably one of my aunts, that her daughter had been so difficult lately that I barely contributed to the household, that she had sacrificed everything, and this was the thanks she got. My hands started shaking. She was already doing it. Before I had said a single word, Coraline was calling relatives and planting her version in their heads. First, she was making me the problem, the ungrateful one. Me, the person who gave her over 1.4 million pesos and got back pocket change. I picked up my phone. My thumb hovered over her contact. Then I stopped. I knew what would happen if I confronted her tonight. She would cry. She would call 5 more people. By morning, the entire family would believe I attacked her in her own kitchen the night before Dino's wedding dinner. I needed to be gone first. I needed to be standing in my own apartment when the storm hit. I pulled my last bag from under the bed and packed the remaining things and zipped it. A little after midnight, I heard a soft knock. It was Dino. He walked in without saying anything and sat on the edge of my bed, turning his phone over in his fingers like he was trying to figure out how to say what he came to say. After a long, quiet moment, he said he had gone through Coraline's credit card statements. He said she left her purse in the kitchen. He found receipts, salon visits, clothes, 2 trips, restaurant charges, hundreds of thousands of pesos worth. His jaw was tight. He said she spent my money, all of it, and the numbers didn't lie. For the first time in 3 years, I saw something in his face I had never seen before. Real understanding. I told him I was moving out in the morning. He looked stunned, but he just nodded. Saturday morning, I woke at 4:30. I moved through the house as quietly as I could, carrying bags to the front door. The taxi I had called the night before was already parked outside with its headlights on. I was on my second trip when I heard a door open behind me. Coraline stood in the hall in her robe with her hair messy from sleep, squinting at me. Her eyes moved from my face to the bag to the front door. I could see the exact moment her brain caught up with what was happening. Her whole face tightened and she crossed her arms and asked where I thought I was going. I kept my voice calm. I had practiced this moment 100 times. I said I was moving out. I had my own place. Coraline stared for about 2 seconds and then she laughed. That short, mean kind of laugh. She said, with what money? You can barely afford lunch. She really believed it. She had kept me on 2,000 pesos a week for so long that in her mind I was permanently small, permanently hers. I looked her in the eyes and told her I got a raise 8 months ago. I had been saving the difference in a separate account. I had enough for rent, furniture, and 6 months of expenses. I was leaving today. The laugh disappeared from her face like someone had wiped it off with a cloth. Her mouth opened slightly, and her eyes got wide, and I watched something move across her expression that I had never seen before. Fear. Real fear. The kind you see in someone who just realized the ground they were standing on isn't solid anymore. Her hand shot out and she grabbed my arm hard, right above the elbow. She asked if I had been hiding money from her, from my own mother, after everything she had done for me. I pulled my arm back, not gently. I took a step back so there was space between us. And then I said what I had been holding inside for 3 years. I said she took over 1.4 million pesos from me in 3 years. I said she spent it on vacations, clothes, furniture, and Dino's lifestyle. I said she gave me back less than what a part-time worker makes. I said she didn't manage my money. She took it. Coraline's face crumpled. Her chin started to shake and her eyes filled with tears and she pressed one hand to her chest like I had physically hurt her. She said she kept this house running. She kept food on the table. She kept me safe. She thought that was free. For a second, just a second, something pulled in my chest, but I didn't let it stop me. I said she never asked Dino for a single peso. I said she told me it was my duty as the daughter while she spent mine on salon appointments. I said that wasn't tradition. That was stealing from your own child. Her tears stopped almost instantly. 1 second she was the crying, heartbroken mother. The next her face was hard and red and her fists were clenched. She shouted that I was ungrateful, that she gave me a home, that I was sneaking around behind her back like a thief. The woman who took 1.4 million pesos of my money and blew it on salon visits and vacations called me a thief because I saved money I earned. Footsteps came down the hall. Dino appeared, still in the clothes he had slept in, his hair sticking up on one side. Coraline grabbed his arm the same way she had grabbed mine and told him to tell his sister she was being ridiculous. Dino looked at her hand on his arm, then at me, then back at her. He said quietly that he had seen the receipts. He had seen the credit card statements. I wasn't being ridiculous. I was right. Coraline froze. Her mouth moved, but nothing came out. I think in that moment she realized something she had never considered possible. That Dino and I could be on the same side. That her golden child could look at the evidence and choose to believe the numbers over her tears. I picked up my bag and walked to the door. She said if I walked out that door, don't ever come back. I didn't turn around. I stepped out into the morning air and loaded the bag into the taxi and got in. The driver pulled away from the curb. Within 2 days, my phone started lighting up with calls from extended family. An aunt I barely spoke to called and said Coraline told her I abandoned her. She said I owed her respect no matter what, and hung up. 3 more relatives reached out with almost identical messages. Coraline had already set the family narrative against me before I unpacked. My first box. On Wednesday morning, Felicity called. I could tell she had been crying. She said Dino told her what happened with my mom and the money, but his mom was telling her parents that my family couldn't afford the wedding because I took money from the household and left. left. She said her dad was asking questions. She said her dad kept saying maybe they should push the wedding back until things settled down. I told Felicity the truth was going to come out and she needed to trust Dino right now. An hour later, Dino called. He was not calm. He said Coraline was telling everyone a completely different story. He said Felicity's dad was talking about postponing the wedding. He said he couldn't lose Felicity over mom's lies. I told him we needed to set the record straight together. I said we needed to sit down with Felicity and her parents and show them the real bank statements and the real numbers, not Coraline's version. Dino went quiet. Then in a smaller voice he said, if he went against mom publicly, she would never forgive him. I said she spent his wedding fund on herself and lied about it. I said she already chose herself over him. The line went quiet again. The kind of quiet where someone is standing very still because something just hit them in the center of the chest. After a full minute, he said, okay, what do we do? I told him a dinner at my apartment the following Saturday. Just us and Felicity's parents. No Coraline. Saturday evening, I spent the afternoon setting up my small dining table and borrowing 2 folding chairs from the building manager. I printed every bank statement from the past 3 years showing the transfers to Coraline's account, 48,000 pesos every month for 36 months. The numbers stacking up page after page until the total at the bottom read 1,440,000 pesos. I put them in a folder and set it on the counter. Dino arrived early with Felicity, both of them nervous, and he had a thick envelope in his hand. Her parents showed up exactly on time. Felicity's father walked in, sat down, folded his hands in front of him like he was about to conduct a business meeting. He said they needed to understand what was happening with our family's finances. He said before the wedding moved forward, they needed the truth. I said that was exactly why we were here. I slid the first page across the table and started from the beginning. My entire paycheck went to Coraline every month for 3 years. 48,000 pesos transferred on payday. She gave me back 2,000 pesos a week, 8,000 pesos a month. That left 40,000 pesos per month that she kept. Multiply that by 36 months, and you get 1,440,000 pesos. I explained that Dino also lived at home, that he also had a job, but that Coraline never asked him to contribute a single peso. She told me it was my duty as the daughter. Felicity's mother looked at me and asked why I would agree to that. It wasn't a mean question. It was genuine confusion. I said because my mother told me it was tradition. She told me it was my duty. I was 22, and I believed her. Dino pulled the envelope toward him and spread the credit card statements across the table. Page after page of charges. Salon appointments twice a month for 3 years. Clothing stores. Department stores. 2 separate charges labeled as travel agency payments. A furniture store charge for 60,000 pesos. Another for 45,000. A gym membership under Dino's name. Car insurance under Dino's name. Phone plan charges. All paid from Coraline's credit card. All adding up month after month. Dino's voice was quiet but clear when he said this was where the money went. He said she told him she was saving for his future. She told me she was managing the household. She was spending it. All of it. Felicity's father picked up one of the statements and ran his finger down the line of charges. He flipped to the next page, then the next. Finally, he looked up and said there was over 1 million pesos in charges. Dino nodded and said 1.4 million. That was what I earned. That was what was gone. The room went very quiet. Felicity's mother was staring at the receipts. Felicity had her hand pressed over her mouth. Felicity's father set the statements down, lining up the edges carefully. Then he said they had heard enough. He sat back in his chair and his whole posture changed. He looked at Dino and said Coraline lied to them. That was serious, but he could see Dino was not his mother. He looked at Felicity and said if she still wanted this wedding, they would cover their half. Dino and I would figure out the rest. But Coraline was not involved in the finances. Not 1 peso went through her. Felicity let out a breath like she had been holding it for days. Dino's eyes got shiny. Her parents stayed a few more minutes, asked a couple of practical questions about the wedding timeline, and excused themselves to give us space. When Felicity came back, she sat next to Dino and leaned her head on his shoulder. Dino turned to me. His face was completely open. No walls, no defenses. He said he was sorry. He was sorry he never asked where the money came from. He was sorry he just took what she gave him and never thought about what it cost me. My throat got tight. I said he didn't know. He shook his head and said he should have. My phone buzzed on the table. Coraline. My thumb hovered over the green button. Then I set the phone face down, and for the first time in years, the silence felt like something I chose. The phone kept buzzing. Once, twice, 3 times before it finally stopped. Dino rubbed his face with both hands. He said Coraline called him that morning. She said if he sided with me, she would tell everyone he was an ungrateful son. She said she would skip the wedding. I asked what he said. He met my eyes and said he told her if she couldn't be honest, she didn't need to be there. They left a little later, his arm around Felicity's shoulders. I closed the door behind them and stood with my forehead against the wood and breathed. I cleaned up, stacked the plates, folded the statements back into the folder, returned the folding chairs to the wall. My phone buzzed one more time. Coraline. I didn't feel the pull this time. I didn't feel the old reflex to pick up, to explain, to defend myself. I just looked at her name and felt something I hadn't expected. Not anger, not sadness, just distance. I turned off the kitchen light and walked to the window and looked out at the street. The apartment was quiet and still in mine.